Hi there, welcome to Long Distance Review. This week I'm going to have a look at the new album from metal band Bullet for My Valentine. Now a bit of a caveat at the start. I'm not the biggest Bullet for My Valentine's fan in the world. In fact, I've never really been much of a fan anyway. There's a few songs they've done I quite enjoy. There's a lot that I don't enjoy. But I feel that this album they've released recently, it's going to be quite a career-defining album for them, really. I've always found the trajectory and the career path quite interesting and how they've sort of gone about their business. And I think this album is going to be a real sort of talking point this year about this band. So let's have a look back at their history a little bit and I'll come on to this album. They were formed in 1998 in Wales. And on this album, the artists on the album are Matt Tuck on rhythm guitar and vocals. They've got Michael Paget on lead guitar. They've got Jason Bowles on drums. And Jamie Mathis on bass. Now, their recording history, they released their first album in 2005 entitled The Poison. And this was sort of more of a screamo, metalcore album. And it is, considered by many to be their best album. Has the big songs like Tears Don't Fall on it. And it's probably been their sort of, still considered one of their best albums. They followed it up in 2008 with Scream Aim Fire. Which was a bit more of a thrashier effort. There's less screaming on it than on the first album, and it's all evolved their sound a little bit. And they're still very much praised by critics, and it seems like everything was going really well for Bullet. 2010 they released Fever, a bit more of a heavy metal album than a thrash album. Still very positive reception from the critics, and there was much more of a, you can sort of see an upward trajectory they were going on. I mean, at this period of time, Bullet were tipped really for they were the next Metallica out of Britain. They were tipped for headline festivals, headline arenas, the next big thing. They were huge at the time. So then, in 2013, when they released the album Temper Temper, it completely derailed the band. Now, Temper Temper is a really, really poor album. Even for a fan like me who isn't a fan of the band, who took a passing interest in their music more than anything else. Take a listen to this album. It's turgid. It's much more of a hard rock album, but it's laughable. Check out the song Riot. That really is the pinnacle of things that are funny, which aren't meant to be, let's say. It's a really strange, bad album. But it completely derailed their career from a band that were on the up and up and up. And it seemed like they were going to be going to the higher echelons of the metal world. This just alienated fans, and people really just sort of turned their back on Bullet. They came back in 2015 with the album Venom, which was the obvious next step for them, was the return to the metal. We fucked up there, we fucked up on Temper Temper, this is Venom, we are a metal band again, don't worry, we're back, please, come on. It was more of a let's please the fans kind of album than anything else. I don't know if they did it for themselves or they did it for the fans. But the strange thing was, it was largely ignored. The critics actually quite liked it. They sort of they said it was a return to their sound and a decent effort. But really, it didn't break any records, let's say, in sales charts or arena tours, and it didn't really, they plateaued, it seems. Their career path plateaued on Venom. So that's why I found this album really interesting, because if they still want to be the big arena band, the big headline band, which I know they do want to be, they've said it many times themselves in interviews, then this album was going to have to be something huge for them to make that leap back up. So let's look at it. So this album's called Gravity. Let's have a look at the singles they released before the album came out. They actually released Don't Need You as a standalone song in 2016, and somehow that's found its way onto the album. I'll come back onto that a little bit later. But the three singles I want to look at before the album were the singles Over It, Piece of Me, and Letting You Go. If you take a listen to all three of those songs, I think it's a very good indication of what Bullet are trying to go for on this album, and the sound they're trying to go for. It's a much more experimental sound. Let's say it's more of a radio rock sound than anything else. And I think maybe after Temper Temper, and Venom didn't really do it for them. Maybe they felt like they have to go all out to make the radio, to make the mainstream, to get recognition, to get the airwaves, and to be that big band. And that's what it seems like they were going for with those 3 singles. Now, is that an indication for the rest of the album? Open the song, Leap of Faith, is actually one of the better ones on here. It's not a decent little, it is a decent little song. It's pleasantly surprising. It wasn't what I expected straight away after hearing the singles. It's a bit of a synth opening, followed by sort of some scattergun drumming. But it's a decent enough song. There's a big breakdown. Then all of a sudden, after the breakdown, I couldn't help but feel it has a massive Bring Me the Horizon sempiternal feel to it. As that sound, the big synths, the big hooks, the big melodies, and that kind of effect on the vocals that comes in and out every now and again. Which is fine, I guess, but it just smacks of Bullet chasing trends, which is fine sometimes when the trend is relevant. Sempiternal came out quite a while ago now. They're chasing trends that aren't trends anymore. They're chasing trends that were trends 5-6 years ago. And if that's what they're going for, I don't think it's going to work for them. So that was the first song. It follows up with the singles Over It and Letting You Go. And that's where this album shows the true colours of what it is. They're huge radio rock songs. But Letting You Go is an awful song. Awful song. It's probably one of the worst on this album. The chorus itself with Matt Tuck's over-synthesized voice. And let me just say, the one thing I've always not enjoyed about Bullet and Matt Tuck's lyrics, and he gets a lot of criticism about his lyrics, and I think it's fair enough. It's just, I guess when you release an album, your first ever album in 2005 as a young new musician, you can be excused in a way for some sort of cringeworthy lyrics and a few cliches thrown in there. But when you're, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, this is their 6th album, and he's a 38-year-old man nowadays. He doesn't seem to have progressed as a lyricist at all. His lyrics still sound like they're written by a 15-year-old heartbroken teenager. And Letting You Go's got a really bad chorus for that. What is it? You say that you hate me, then you say you love me. This is how I'm feeling, now I'm letting you go. Pretty cringeworthy stuff. And I could pick up on many lyrics throughout this album. I'm not going to, because it's just too easy to do that. But let's just say, Matt Tuck's lyrics have never been good, and they are really poor on this album. And I soon realised that this must be a breakup album. And I never really bothered looking back into, let's say, celebrities' lives. But looking back, Matt Tuck has split up with his partner, and this is his breakup album. This feels like a Matt Tuck album, not a Bullet album. Gone are the guitars, gone are the solos, in come the keys and the synths, and Matt Tuck is front and centre on this album. And when your lyrics are that poor, his vocals are excellent, he's got a good voice, but when your lyrics are that poor, they stand out really, really badly when there's nothing else to hook onto. There's no great solos, there's no great intricate guitar work. There's just his lyrics backed by synths and chugging riffs. And it's the run on this album from, say, track 2 to track 9 where this album really, really suffers. And that's a hell of a run when you've only got an 11-track album. It's 8 songs out of the 11, which I think really, really let this album down. The pinnacle of the new experimental sound they're going for can be found on the song The Very Last Time, which is pretty much all keys, all synths. It's a ballad, it's the usual ploddy ballad, but it just sounds like 30 Seconds to Mars. It sounds like the 30 Seconds to Mars from like 4 or 5 years ago when they just disappeared up their own arse. And we're still trying to get that radio rock sound, but full of synths and big choruses. This sounds like that, but not really as good. And again, they're chasing a sound that was big 4 or 5 years ago. They're not big now. And I know it's a breakup album, okay, and it's Matt Tuck's personal breakup album. He's got every right as an artist to write about what he wants. But every single song on this album is a breakup song. And it gets very tiresome after a while. It's like emo metal, let's say, which I'm not totally against. I love a bit of emo. But every song on this album is the same. Every formula's hit. The, I'll get over it, I'll move on without you. It gets a bit much after a while. And it seems very tiresome. By the time you get to the song Under Again, I've had enough of this. It's not exactly a long album. I'd say 41 minutes long. But it drags and drags and drags. And as I said before, the lyrics are poor. But because there's no solos, because there's no intricate guitar work to hook onto, the lyrics stand out more and more and more, and you can't help but listen to what he's saying and think, Jesus Christ. Gravity and Coma, the two sort of songs towards the end, I think they're track 8 and 9, they're instantly forgettable. They're just, by this time, you're just like, okay, there's another big synth, there's another big hook, there's another big chorus, next song. Don't Need You is probably the better song, one of the best songs on the album, which is track 9. And as I said before, that was the first single they released, but they released it as a standalone song in 2016, and it feels like they just shoehorned it onto this album to please their fans. We can still do metal. Don't worry, we can still do metal. We just chose not to on this album. If you don't believe us, here's that song we did a couple of years ago. We'll shove it on here for you. It feels out of place, but it's probably the best song on it. And even before you get to the last track's called Breathe Underwater. You could guess what it sounds like by the time you get to track 4 and 5. You can guess what that song's going to sound like, and you'll be exactly right. It's a sappy, tiresome ballad, and it's boring and overblown. I mean, the production on this album is glossy. It's so shiny. It's so huge. They are going for this big, big sound. But it sounds like they've missed the mark by about 5 or 6 years if they're chasing that trend. And to me, the songs aren't good enough. They're not good enough. There's probably 2 or 3 songs on here which I can see sort of doing okay. Piece of Me isn't actually a bad song after it all. It looks a bit better in between the actual turds it sat between on the album. It's more of a Linkin Park style riff on it, and a bit more of a new metal song. And actually, by the time you get to that song, you think, this one isn't as bad as I thought. I think it's just because of what's around it. It's worse. Yeah, it's a shame for me for Bullet, because although I'm not a fan of them, I always want them to do quite well. They were an up-and-coming British metal band, and being from Britain myself, I always want to see them do well. But this seems like they've misstepped badly. Is it as bad as Temper Temper? Probably not, but it's much more curious than that. It's much more bizarre, and it could easily derail them just as badly as Temper Temper did, if not more. People will turn their back on them after this. Maybe it'll make new fans, but the fans they're trying to get are already on the Bring Me Horizon bandwagon. Why would they come back here? So yeah, it's a strange one for me, and a shame. But anyway, let me know what you think. Yeah, I'll be interested to see what people think about this album, because I'm sure there are some people who love it, and maybe it's just me. Maybe because I'm not a big fan of Bullet, I've got a bit of a bias against it, but to me this doesn't seem like the right move for them at all. Anyway, great, thanks for watching. Let me know in the comments what you think of the album. Cheers.